Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to be together. Wasn't that wonderful, exciting, magnificent? Wow, so exciting. We've got a bunch of wonderful music this morning. Thank you very much to Daniel Basson and all of our musicians. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo. It is so good to be with all of you this morning. My name is Joan Montagnes, and I have the honor and the privilege of serving you, this congregation, as minister. We're in a Zoom webinar, which means that we can't hear or see you. You can't hear or see each other. You can hear and see our worship associate, Tracy Kassman, and you can hear and see me. You can also see some of our musicians today, which is all the more fun and exciting. You can chat with each other all the way through the service using the chat controls. And we offer closed captioning. Perhaps. I'm not sure that's up yet. Um, we offer closed captioning. I think if the captioning would help you participate, great. And if not, oh, there it is. Uh, just click on, if you find it distracting, just click on the CC button and you can disable it, or you can make the font larger if it would even help you better to do things that way. I want to offer a big shout out to Josh Disick, John Petroselli. Josh Disick, by the way, is our tech today. John Petroselli, Justin DeClean, Karen Street, who does all our visuals, and all our music staff who help create our worship experiences every single week. This week, we have a special guest star, percussionist Michelle Purdy. And as another bonus, we actually have our accompanist who almost never talks, Jonathan Vogdal, is going to be doing a speaking song. Very exciting. I've got some announcements for you because what would church be without some announcements? First of all, General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association is coming up and registration is open. We're looking for delegates. It's the General Assembly will be online again this year, which means it's going to be cheap and easy to get to, no further than your computer screen. If you would like to be a delegate, just let me know and we can get you signed up as a delegate. We have lots of slots available, and scholarship funds are also available for registration. Memorial Day Sunday. On the 30th of May, we will be holding a Memorial Day service, and we would like to celebrate the lives of your beloved dead. And we'd like to do it using a slideshow. If you would like to include a photo of your loved one in this slideshow in our worship service that day, please send an electronic photo and the name of your loved one to Karen Streech by May 25th. It would be wonderful to have a whole display of all the people we love and hold them in our worship space. Another announcement about our relational covenant. We are developing a relational covenant for our congregation. On May 29th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to hold a congregational Zoom event to work on this covenant together. We're going to break into small groups and imagine the promises we can make to one another to hold our church in healthy relationships. Your participation is vital to the process. It just doesn't work if you're not part of it. And I want to remind you that every single Friday night outside the garden entrance, we have an in-person Vesper service. Come for community, music, candlelight, poetry, and meditation. This week, Phil Nicolai, our very own Phil Nicolai, will be playing the piano for our live music. And our last announcement is that after this service and after all our worship services, we have a Zoom fellowship time where you can hear and see each other. The address for that is in your chat, in your newsletter, the e-blast, and where, yes, at the last slide of this worship service. That is enough announcing. So good to have you all here. Let's sing a song. Let's join in singing Shalom Haberim.
Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom. Leitrayot, Leitrayot, Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom. Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, 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 Shalom Haverim, Shalom Haverim, Shalom, Shalom.
Every day, we are confronted by chaos, despair, and pain. Let us together begin to craft a different story. A story that reaches out boldly. Let us tell a story that speaks the love-inspired word, a story that reaches out boldly from all the broken rubble for peace. A story that holds a balm of comfort for all to hear. Let us be the storytellers who use our powers to heal and not harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve in a liberating ministry. Come, let us worship.
In the Unitarian Universalist faith, we light a chalice, sign and symbol of our hope and heritage, and our love for one another, the spirit within, before we begin a worship service. Let's join in our chalice lighting words together. We gather in loving community, inspiring one another to transform ourselves to create a more just and compassionate world.
To the earth, mother of all, I will sing the well-established, the oldest, who nourishes on her surface everything that lives. Those things that walk upon the holy ground, and those that swim in the sea, and those that fly. All these are nourished by your abundance. It is thanks to you if we humans have healthy children and rich harvests. Great Earth, you have the power to give life and to take it away. From creatures that must die, happy are the ones whom you honor with your kindness and gifts. What they have built will not vanish. Their fields are fertile, their herds prosper. And their houses are full of good things. Their cities are governed with just laws. Their women are beautiful. Good fortune and wealth follow them. Their children are radiant with the joy of youth. The young women play. The young women play in the flowery meadow. Dancing with happiness in their hearts. Holy earth, undying spirit, so it is with those whom you honor. Hail to you, Mother of life, you who are loved by the starry sky. Be generous and give me a happy life. In return for my song, so that I can continue to praise you with my music.
Every week, we take a good portion of our Sunday morning offering and give it away to a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month, we are supporting the good work of Literacy Buffalo Niagara. Literacy Buffalo Niagara helps our community with literacy skills by providing free tutoring in Erie and Niagara counties through engagement and training. You can use PayPal by going to our website, www.buffalouu.org, and clicking on the blue donate button. Or you can send a check by mail to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo, 695 Elmwood Avenue, Buffalo, New York, 14222. You can also arrange a regular automatic deposit with your bank. If yours is a gift to our Share the Plate ministry, please write share on the memo line, and it will be shared with the Literacy Buffalo Niagara and the church operating budget. If yours is a welcome gift to our congregation, please write Pledge 2021 on the memo line. Either way, please write UUCB on the important line, and we will do the bookkeeping. Your generosity can begin to tell the story we've all been hoping to hear.
This song is called Alice's Restaurant. It's a
about Alice and the restaurant. But Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant, that's just the name of the song. That's why I call this song Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Now it all started 2 Thanksgivings ago. That's 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, when my friend and I went up to visit Alice at the restaurant. But see, Alice doesn't live at the restaurant. She lives in the church nearby the restaurant, in the bell tower, with her husband Ray and Facha the dog. And living in a bell tower like that, they got a lot of room where the pews used to be in, and having all that room, seeing as how they took out all the pews, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for a long time. So we got up there and we found all the garbage, and we decided it would be a friendly gesture for us to take the garbage down to the city dump. So we took the nearly half a ton of garbage and loaded it into the back of a red VW microbus. We took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction and headed on towards the city dump. Well, we got there, and there's a gate with a sign, and the sign had a chain across it and said, "Closed on Thanksgiving." Well, we had never heard of a dump closed on Thanksgiving before, and with tears in our eyes, we drove off into the sunset looking for another place to put the garbage. We didn't find one. Till we came to a side road, and off the side of the side road was another 15-foot cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage. So we figured that one big pile was better than 2 little piles, and rather than bring that one up, we decided to throw ours down, so that's what we did. Drove back to the church, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, went to sleep, and didn't get up until the next morning, when we got a phone call from Officer Obie. He said, "Kid, we found your name on an envelope at the bottom of a half a ton of garbage, and just wanted to know if you had any information on that." I said, "Officer, I cannot tell a lie. I put that envelope under that garbage." After speaking with Officer Obie for about 45 minutes on the telephone, we finally came to the truth of the matter, that we had to go down and pick up all the garbage, and also had to answer a few more questions at the police officer station. So we got back in the red VW microbus with the shovels and rakes and implements of destruction and drove on towards the police officer's station. Now, friends, there was only 1 or 2 things that Officer Obie could have done when we got to the police officer's station. And the first thing he could have done was given us a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone, which wasn't likely and we didn't expect it. And the other possibility was that he could have balked us out and said never to be seen driving garbage around the city again, which was more likely and we expected that. But when we got to the police officer station, there was a third possibility that we hadn't even counted upon, and we was both immediately arrested. Handcuffed, I said, "Obie, I don't think I can pick up the garbage with these handcuffs on." Said, "Shut up, kid." Get in the back of the patrol car, and that's what we did. We got back in the back of the patrol car and drove to the, quote, "scene of the crime," unquote. I want to tell you a little something about Stockbridge, Massachusetts. When you got a thing like this going on, you usually have 2 police officers and 1 police car, but when we got to the scene of the crime, there was 5 police officers and 4 police cars being the biggest crime of the last 50 years, and everybody wanted to get a big newspaper story about it. And they were using all kinds of cop equipment that they had hanging around the police officer's station. They were taking all these prints, and then they took these 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. Took pictures of the approach, the getaway, the northeast corner, the southeast corner, and that's not to mention the aerial photography. After the ordeal, we drove back to the police officer station where Obi said he was gonna put us in a cell. He said, "Kid, I'm gonna put you in a cell. I want your wallet and your belt." I said, "Officer, I can understand you want my wallet so that I don't have any money to spend in the cell, but what do you want my belt for?" He said, "Kid, we don't want any hangings." I said, "Officer, did you really think I was gonna hang myself for littering?" Obi was just making sure, friends Obi was, because he also took out the toilet seat so I couldn't bang myself over the head with the toilet seat and drown. And he also took out the roll of toilet paper so that I couldn't bend the bars on the prison cell, roll the roll of toilet paper out the window, slide down the rope, and have an escape. Obi was just making sure, and it was about 4 or 5 hours later when Alice, remember Alice? This is a song about Alice. Alice came in with a few nasty words to Obi on the side, bailed us out of jail, and we went back to the church and had another Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, went to sleep and didn't get up until the next morning when we had to go to court. So we got in there and a man walked in, he said, "All rise." We all stood up. Obi stood up, holding the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one. And then the judge walked in and sat down with a seeing-eye dog, and then we all sat down, and Obi looked at the seeing-eye dog. And then at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, and then looked back at the seeing-eye dog. And then at the 27 8x10 colored glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, and he began to cry because Officer Obi finally realized that this was a typical case of American blind justice and there was nothing he was going to be able to do about it because the judge wasn't going to look at the 27 8x10 colored glossy photographs with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. And we was fined $50 and we had to go pick up the garbage in the snow, but that's... The only reason I'm telling you any of this is because you might know someone in a similar situation, or you might be in a similar situation. And if you find yourself in a similar situation, I want you to walk across the street to your local shrink's office and say, "Listen, shrink, you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. And you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant."
Our reading today is The Broken Story by Reverend Christina Leone Tracy. No relation to me. This story is about a man with a story about stories, if you will. Once upon a time, there was a man with a story. This wasn't any old once upon a time story. Not one you could find on a bookshelf or hear around the campfire. This was his story and no one else's. This story had been carefully crafted. It began before he was born, and this story told of his loves and his fears, his dreams realized and his dreams yet to come. This story was complete. It told his whole life, including those bits that still existed in his imagination. In fact, this story was so complete, and he was so happy with his story that he carried it around to make sure it was safe. It was somewhat bulky and unwieldy, but he didn't mind. It was his story. The thing about this story was it was very fragile, made up of many pieces and held together by only his own imagination. He was worried it might break apart at any minute. And so he grew more and more protective of his story. He held it even closer. As he went about his life, he checked on the story to make sure he was following it correctly. He avoided adventure and unknowns because, well, they might break his story. And then one day, the inevitable happened. Without warning, his story broke. It was unforeseen, and he hadn't done anything wrong at all, but there it was, lying in 1,000 shattered pieces on the ground, with the sunlight glinting off the bits of the story he had so carefully protected for all those years. He was heartbroken. And since his story hadn't said to put the pieces back together, he was at a loss. What now? He sat down next to the pile of pieces and cried. A while later, maybe it was minutes, maybe it was hours, a group of people came out of the nearby building and saw him sitting on the sidewalk surrounded by a pile of broken pieces, clearly in need of help. "What's happened here?" a woman asked. "My story, it's gone. I worked so hard to build it, to protect it, to keep it from harm, and now it's gone, gone," he wailed. Is this a story here?" a man asked. "Yes, look at it. There's nothing left of it." It looks like it's here, not gone," said a child. We just have to put it back together." "Put it back together? There's no way. You don't even know what it looked like. How will you put it back together if you don't even know me?" The child was tenacious. "Don't worry. With all of us here to help, we'll put it back together in a way that you would never even expect. You never know. It might be more beautiful than before." And so they swept up the pieces of the man's story carefully and went together into the building from which they had emerged. They poured him some hot coffee and sang a song he had never heard before. Something about coming again and again, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. The song was soothing, and the coffee was warm. He began to feel hope again, that his story could be put back together. And it took a long time. Maybe it was days, maybe it was years, but they got it all back together and they added new parts, and some old parts didn't fit anymore, but that was okay. The child had been right. It was more beautiful than before, and this time the story was held together not only by his imagination, but the imagination and support of an entire community. It wasn't nearly so fragile, and it even allowed for adventure.
Let's join our hearts and minds in a quiet moment of prayer, reflection, and meditation. Imagine you are on a journey and you've been traveling through the mountains and woods since morning. Listen to the birds, the wind in the trees, the crunch of the path underfoot. Take in the scent of pine and moist earth. Night is beginning to fall. Crickets, frog song. As dusk descends, you come to a small settlement along the river bank. Knock on the door of an inn. Inquire about a place to rest your head. No, the inn is already full. Outside, stars are beginning to wake in the advancing darkness. Families are enjoying their suppers and preparing for night. You're tired after a long day and ready to sleep. But you continue on the path. Beyond the village, there is an abandoned orchard. Walk along the path and lie your body down beneath a cherry tree. Sleep. Then wake. It is still night, but a gentle light falls upon your face. Thousands of cherry blossoms have opened above you while you rested under the tree. Each flower holds the moon in its petaled cup. This is the story you tell. Through their kindness in refusing me lodging, I found myself beneath the beautiful blossoms on the night of the misty moon. Today, we especially hold in our hearts Ryan Knowles, who celebrated his birthday this week. And now let us open our worship space to all the names of our loved ones suffering in sorrow and celebrating in joy, each name a breath, each breath a prayer. The breath of nature is upon us. The spirit of life is within us. The community of love is among us. So be it. Blessed be. And let the church say, Amen. Once upon a time, a long time ago, before Sesame Street ever graced a television set anywhere, there was a hi-fi system housed in a shiny black console in my family's living room. As soon as I was old enough to switch the thing on, I began playing a few select vinyl records every day, all day. The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews, The Story of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, a K-Tel much expurgated version of the musical Hair, and Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant. Looking back, I believe the latter was quite formative. It probably shaped some of the thoughts I have today on social justice, disability rights, criminal reform, peace activism, my love for Thanksgiving dinners that cannot be beat, and my otherwise unexplainable desire to live in a church. Guthrie is a consummate, subversive storyteller. And I will tell you, he had quite an impact on my little mind. Once upon a time, and still today in some cultures, storytellers like Guthrie held a prized place in the community. The people gathered around the fire or the table or under the shade tree or in the sacred grove and listened to the stories and learned. The people learned how the earth was created, or how good overcomes evil, or how life is full of tricksters who are both amusing and cruel. The storyteller interprets the vast, amorphous cloud of facts that make up our universe. They interpret these facts carefully, magically, weave those facts into narratives that hold meaning. Through the alchemy of storytelling, observations and data give birth to truth. As I say, never confuse the facts with the truth. There is this Hopi proverb that says, those who tell the stories rule the world. And it's true, right? We may no longer hear our stories around the campfire, but we do hear stories from school, our parents, and our friends. We hear stories from NPR, MSN, CNN, Rachel Maddow, Rush Limbaugh, the CDC, the government. We hear stories in newspapers and all kinds of books. We listen to interviews with innovative thinkers. But the interviews are just stories disguised as interviews. Let's not forget about media corporations and their role in storytelling that we hear today. Sorry, I'm getting on a bit of a soapbox there, but I'm just saying, those who tell the stories rule the world. They control the stories, they rule the world, and every story they tell us teaches us something, a little something about our world and ourselves and our place in that world. But here's the thing. We've also been told stories about about ourselves, powerful narratives that tell you who you are in the world. Who's told you these stories? Only you know, and maybe not even you. We hear the whispers, the little angels and creatures, demons on our shoulders. You are beautiful. You are ugly. You are foolish, difficult. You are joyful, useful, useless, worthless. Stories about who we are, what we know, and the potentials and impossibilities of our future. Stories about the purpose and meaning of our being. Countless stories buried too deep in our souls for us to even recognize. We've all got them. Thousands of narratives that make up our reality, rule our world, and hold enormous power. They aren't any once upon a time tales, not books you can find on a shelf or ballads sung by folk singers. They're your stories and no one else's, carefully crafted with beginnings before you were born. A story told of your loves and fears, your dreams realized, and your dreams yet to come. Now, there's a problem if your story is too rigid or closed. If your story gets told too often in exactly the same way. Because if you do that, it's going to become fossilized and fragile and likely to break into 1,000 pieces when challenged. No wonder we sometimes get a little defensive or angry when someone tells us a different story, maybe one that even contradicts the story you've been telling all your life about yourself and who you are in the world. But what if we all began telling a different kind of narrative, a completely different kind of narrative, instead of that rigid fossilized story we have of ourselves? What if we all began telling a different kind of narrative? What if the stories of power in our lives were told by not one, but many storytellers? A community of voices, an invitation of imagination. What if we listened deeply to the experience of others, listened to their truth? And what if we kept changing, developing our stories as the universe was continually being unveiled? Then community itself wouldn't be so fragile. And our stories, well, they'd never be finished. Each storyteller could be interrupted, disturbed, conflicted, but never broken or shattered. How about we break free from the rigid, the narrow, the fossilized tales we tell about the world and our place in it? Let's together begin to craft a different kind of story, a story that speaks the love-inspired word, a story that reaches out boldly from a legion of life experience, a story that holds a balm of comfort and a subversive challenge for all to hear. Then maybe we can all share in ruling the world. The circle is large. The circle is large. Each can take a turn in telling their truth. Perhaps we should begin by listening to those who we have not yet heard. Don't be shy. Be loud, soft. Use your words or music, tones, beats, maybe movement, some facial expressions. Tell your truth by speaking up, by showing up, by not showing up. Through an embrace, with a snarl, with a whisper. Tap flower pots, cook a meal, support a candidate, make love, teach children, paint the neighbor's house, praise the earth. Come forward, create a mesmerizing narrative that captures life and moves it forward. Allow not the facts, but the truth to emerge through you. Take your rightful place in the interconnected web of experience. Come, let us sing. Dona nobis pacem.
Join with me as we extinguish the flame of our chalice. As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may we carry its light with us into the world in the power of peace, faith, justice, and love.
The universe, though vast and mysterious, is one. And so all our experience is connected. Remember you are blessed. Remember you are a blessing. And above all else, remember you are not alone. You are never alone. So be it. Blessed be. And let the church say, Amen.